Hello and welcome to Issues and Answers. Today's program is geared towards providing a comprehensive overview of the Water and Sewage Company Incorporated, WASCO, the issues that the company is facing, and the strategies in place to address those issues, and how we as consumers can help to ensure that we have a sustainable water supply for generations to come. With me today are some very familiar faces. We have Mrs. Zilta George Leslie, our Chief Executive Officer, and we have Mr. Ali Anthony, our Chief Operations Officer. And we're going to cut right to the chase. WASCO has been receiving a lot of negative press of late, and especially with the disruptions. That's the major complaint from customers, that there are too many disruptions, whether planned or unplanned, and especially from the consumers in the north of the island. So tell us why it is we're in the situation that we're in, and what it is that WASCO is putting in place and has put in place to address those issues.
Okay, so good morning to everyone, and thank you for having us, Mr. Stevens. Well, our infrastructure is aged, and I think we should start there. And I think when the public begins to realize or to understand the age of the infrastructure and the challenges that we face, it may be a lot easier for them, to be a little more patient. Because I know right now persons, are a little impatient, but it's because they don't have a supply. And like we say, water is life. So we understand exactly how people feel. And I think it's important for them to know that, we do understand how they feel. But what are we doing? That's the magic question.
Yes.
Okay, what is WASCO doing? So there's a number of things that has to happen, and I think we're specifically talking about the north of the island.
Yes.
Because in the south, over the past couple of years, WASCO has done a lot of improvements in the south of the island, and the testimonies are great. We're getting people who can actually come out on our platforms and express how, the improvements have been for them. However, in the north of the island, we face significant challenges because our main source of water is the John Compton Dam, and that John Compton Dam serves about 60% of our populace. Yeah. So what we have happening is that we have a raw water pipeline which is severely compromised. Because of that, and because we have understood that the severity of the situation is such that it prevents persons from operating and from having their normal activities, as they would like, we then have decided that we are going to replace 5 kilometers of that pipeline. But what we can't do is just get up and do the replacement. So in the interim, what we're doing is that we have to be doing a lot of maintenance works on that pipeline. And every time we have to maintain the pipeline, as people would probably appreciate, we need to shut down the entire system to the north. When we speak of the north, however, there is a specific region, which is the Babono region, which is filled from the hill. They get their water supply from the Hill 20 system. So because of that, that area would not be affected. But other than that Babono region, we're talking about everybody from as far as Millet all the way through to Cap Estate. So if we can appreciate that pipeline it's going to be an upgrade, and it's going to be a replacement of the pipeline. So once we get that going, the situation, of course, will improve. In addition to this, we also have, so the water is taken from the Millet, from John Compton Dam, from Millet through to Varna, and we take that water to the Thebels treatment plant, which is located in Cicero. The Thebels treatment plant was last upgraded in 2007. So it's been a long time since we have done any upgrades there. So what we are finding is that we have a lot of frequent backwashing because the filters have become aged. So due to that, we have now recognized the need to do an upgrade at the treatment plant as well. So once we are able to complete the replacement of that 5 kilometers of pipeline, we do the Fibbles treatment plant, and that treatment plant upgrade is done, so then we would have a greater capacity to treat a lot more water. Once we have been able to do that, and then we still have one more replacement to do, which is the northern pipeline. Once we do the northern pipeline replacement, which would be from the Key Largo Junction, if people are familiar with there, all the way through to Grosile, that pipeline is also severely compromised. And once we do those three things, it will definitely improve the water supply to the northern region.
Thanks for that. That's a very detailed explanation, and I really hope that people understand where we're coming from. But one of the key things, Ali, and maybe you could address that, one of the key things that people always talk about, WASCO is always saying that they can't do it just yet because they don't have the monies in place to do that. Is there anything that we have put in place to ensure that we have the funding to actually take care of all of those infrastructural issues that we have right now?
Yes. There are quite a bit of strategies that we have utilized over the years. One, okay, of course, fiscal prudence is one. We've also been utilizing a lot more advanced type materials and equipment in our infrastructure. For example, we are aware that we now have a lot more higher elevated residents. And in order to supply those residents, we have to increase the pressures in the pipelines. Now, coupled with higher than normal pressures in the pipelines, we also have heavier trucks. You could see those heavy trucks carrying quarried material. So all these create a lot of loading onto the pipes. Now the pipes, most of them are just 3 feet below road surface. So you have a lot of that dynamic loading being applied to the pipes every time those trucks traverse those roads. So, and don't forget, we have a lot of plastic pipes as well. Plastic, because this is what we could afford. So what we have been doing strategically is to replace those plastic pipes in areas where we have a much higher frequency of breaks with ductile iron pipe. These provide a lot more resistance, and these are a lot more resilient than PVC, but they're also like 5 times more expensive. So that's a cost that we cannot just go and replace extensive sections. It's just a bit at a time as we can afford.
And have we tried to seek funding from perhaps international sources, or are we solely dependent on the monies that we make from consumer payments?
Oh no, international funding, this is, I think we have almost have a department allocated specifically for that. Oh
yeah,
yes,
we have the strategic planning department, and that department actually, we specifically go out to try to seek funding. We seek grant funding, we seek loan funding. Thankfully, we have the support of the government of St. Lucia. So the 5 kilometers of pipeline that I spoke to you about, it's not a cheap project. It's a project that's going to cost us $60 million. As most people would be aware, obviously, WASCO cannot fund such a project on its own. So in that regard, what we had to do was to go to the government of St. Lucia, and the government of St. Lucia has agreed to back that loan for us. So we went to the Caribbean Development Bank, which is the CDB, and of course they are our partners. We've partnered with them on a number of projects in the past, including the Vieux Fort Water Supply Redevelopment Project. So we are going to seek funding from the CDB. We have also, in other instances, not necessarily in the north, but we have also sought funding from the CDF, which is the CARICOM Development Fund. So yes, we are going out there to try to get as many persons as possible to come in to support us, because we need the support.
Yes, for sure. When we return from this short break, we will talk about timelines, because I know a lot of people are eager to find out when these things are going to happen. We'll be right back.
Our rivers are St. Lucia's lifeblood, but litter is choking them. Together, we can keep them clean, protect our rivers, secure our water, secure our future.
Welcome back to Issues and Answers. With me here is the CEO and the COO of the Water and Sewage Company, Inc. And before we took the break, we were talking about timelines.
Right.
We mentioned that we have to deal with the issues at Thibbles. We have to deal with the 5 kilometers of pipeline from the JCD. We also have to deal with the rehabilitation of the pipeline from Kilago to the Groseley Gap. What are the timelines for these things? Because all well and good, people will say to you, well, all well and good, you're looking for funding, and that's fantastic. But what are the timelines? When can we expect a break from all this inconsistent supply?
Yeah. So as persons may be aware, these projects take some time. So let's start with the 5 kilometers of pipeline. So we have gotten to the stage where we have approval. We now need to go out and get the actual contractor who would be coming in to do those works. What we have looked at thus far in our schedule, we should be able to commence those works in 2026, and that project will be a 3 to 4 year project, because you must understand we're going into the terrain, we're going into snake infested areas, we're going into there's going to have to be a lot of excavation so that we can replace this pipeline. It's not just, it's not a simple task.
Yes.
Yeah, the task ahead is great. So the timeline for that one would be, we start the construction in 2026, and that will take, like I said, anywhere from 4 to 5, years to actually complete this project. As it relates to the Thibbles treatment plant, that project is going to be a lot shorter. So we estimate that project to be a 2-year project. So what we would be able to do at that point is, because we continue to have the water coming in, because with the maintenance that we just did, we had 8 million gallons now coming in, right? So which is good. So if we can consistently keep it at that, based on the smaller shutdowns that we do and the smaller line maintenance that we do, we should be able to survive that period. But for the actual full rehabilitation of Thibbles, it will take us an additional 2 years, and we're hoping to start that rehabilitation in the last quarter of this year. So 2 years from that. The Northern Pipeline is a much smaller project, and the funding for that is a lot less. So once we're able to commence that project in early 2026, that project is an 18-month project, so that one is a lot shorter. Okay. But what we have done in the interim is that we will continue to have those planned maintenance on the pipeline, planned maintenance at Thibbles treatment plant, so that we can continue to sustain our demand, which of course these days is very high.
Pretty high.
Yeah,
pretty high,
pretty
because
high.
You have a situation where you're looking at an increase in population. Yeah.
Yes.
And when those pipes were installed back in the 80s, some of them, the population then is not what we're facing right now,
Yeah.
and a lot more visitors as well. Our tourism is booming, and as a result, the demand is much higher.
Definitely.
Yeah? Can you put things into perspective for us? When you say to people, we have to plan this maintenance and fix those leaks, can you give us some idea of what it takes to go in there and find those leaks, detect those leaks, and what it takes from our guys to go in there and get those things fixed?
Well, what I can tell you is that it takes a lot of dedication and commitment to do this. You literally have to traverse this entire 5 kilometers, measuring leaks. So first of all, locating and then providing a visual measurement. You have to do all that. A lot of the leaks, sometimes they are within farms. So we have to get in touch with the farmers. We have to get in touch with crop compensation officers. Now let's just say we have done all of that. We have located all the leaks. Now we have to start the planning in terms of equipment, deciding and creating and deciding which teams go where. So anytime we approach leaks on that raw water pipeline, we almost like blitz it. So everybody go in one time. So we have a team there, a team there, a team there. Each of the zones we have a team to to try to quickly repair those leaks. Now the thing is, because it's a high pressure line, we literally have to drain the entire line for us to be able to weld patches on those lines, because you cannot weld on a wet pipe.
Yes.
So after we've done all of that, then we have to strategically refill that pipe and to allow that water to get to the T-bills treatment plant. But it takes a lot of equipment, and a lot of times we have to ensure that the plant date does not coincide with a
Any
rainy
major
period.
events
Because
as well,
if it's
yeah.
rainy, we cannot go in there because the
Yes.
equipment just cannot navigate.
Yes,
Right?
yes.
Some of the leaks are in the river itself. So we have to divert the river sometimes. And again, if it's flooded, we cannot do it. So it's challenging, but it's an exciting job as well, in that you literally have to think so much whilst you're there, and you also have to keep an eye out for fertilizer as well, because
Yes,
it's a
yes.
snake country.
Yes.
And but one of the things that we are always critical and are always aware of is that we have a timeline. We have a 48-hour period to repair those leaks, and whatever we do, we have to try to ensure that we repair as many as we can within that 48-hour period. We recently embarked on an exercise to repair leaks. That's the most we have ever done at any one time. That was 30. We have had to do 20-something, 19, but this time it was 30. What this tells us is that the pipeline is getting worse. It's getting worse, so the next time we probably go there, it might be more than 30. Or those that are there currently would have been worse. But what we try to do, we try to not allow the inflow to the plant go below a certain number, because if it goes there, everybody starts getting affected. And once the demand or the supply drops, we're in trouble.
Yes.
Because it takes a lot to charge back that line so that everybody gets water. So we have folks, for example, in Cap Estate, Piat, Moshi, all the Boseju, all the elevated areas and areas of high demand tend to suffer the
most,
first, and they, to be able to supply them with water, it usually takes a lot more time. Because what you tend to have is that a lot of those folks, they've got storage tanks. Those tanks will probably be almost empty, so that all those tanks now have to be filled before the next neighbor gets water. This is just how water works. You cannot fill a glass from the top. You have to pull it from the bottom and allow it to fill up. So we are very cognizant of the situation out there in terms of our inability to provide a consistent supply. And trust me, we're trying our best.
Yes.
We're trying our utmost best.
And I hope these responses give people a greater appreciation of what we have to go through to give this, because again, we rely on natural water sources to do this. So it's not like we can make this from some other source.
And I'm not sure that that they really understand, because Mr. Anthony spoke a lot about the conditions out there. But sometimes the trenches, because the pipe is very deep, so we have trenches over 20 feet down. And then that's where the pipeline is. And then we have to get the welders to come in. Could you imagine the welders having to be underneath this pipeline welding? So it's a very tedious process. And people, and we really want people to understand. We want them to appreciate what is that our staff does, because our staff is very hardworking. And we were able also to do the Sanssouci Bridge as well.
Oh yes. The
Sanssouci Bridge has been, I mean, it's been in the social media, and it's a success. It's a success for us, because that leak had been there for some 15 or so years. I think everybody was a little antsy about touching it, because it was in a very peculiar location. But we made the effort, and Mr. Anthony and his team, Mr. Anthony actually was the one on that zone, because like he explained, we tried to separate everybody into zones, and it was a great success, and we need to appreciate those successes.
Yes, indeed. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we will try to put things into a visual perspective, if you will, because I know we're talking 5 kilometers of pipe, etc., but we want an idea of what that actually looks like. So when we come back, we'll be talking that. Thanks.
Every drop of water connects us to life, to our island, to the future. Simple actions make a difference. Turn off taps, reuse water, and save water. Secure our water, secure our future.
Thank you, and welcome back to Issues and Answers with me, the team from WASCO, our Chief Executive Officer, Mrs. Zilta George Leslie, and our Chief Operations Officer, Mr. Ali Anthony. And when we took the break, we were talking about getting a visual, because we keep referring to the 5 kilometers of pipe that we have to replace when it comes to the Northern Raw Water Pipeline. So give us an idea of what that looks like in terms of distance.
5 kilometers, that would be the distance, approximately the distance between the SAB to the shock roundabouts.
Okay.
Yes, that's approximately.
And is that where it's going to be replaced, or?
Yes, this section of pipe, this is what's going to be replaced, because what it is, it's of a different material. It's made up of mild steel, and mild steel just cannot handle those kind of conditions that those pipes have in place. And the reason why we always speak of 5 kilometers, because this is the only section with that type of material, and this is the section that is failing all the time. Okay, yes.
So once that is replaced, is it a situation where we will still have to be repairing those leaks, or would that be a thing of the past?
Once that is replaced, we will not be going in there for a very long time. And if we ever do go in there, it's probably because maybe some air valve or something broke off and we have to repair it or something like this. But in terms of work on the pipe itself, we will not be going there.
And this is the 2026 project that we're talking about?
Yes, hopefully to start in 2026.
Okay. One of the things that consumers have always been complaining about, and this is something I think we just need to touch on just for a bit. When we go in and replace those pipes, and the road maintenance is not done immediately following that, people often blame WASCO. But we actually do have an MOU with the Ministry of Infrastructure, I think since about 2005 or thereabout, maybe even earlier than that.
Maybe 13, 14.
13, 14.
Yes,
okay, so maybe about 2015 or so.
Yes.
And in that MOU, we have to replace the pipes, and the Ministry of Infrastructure goes in now and does the maintenance on the road, because we're not equipped to do that sort of thing. But people often complain about that. So just again, give us an idea of how it should happen.
Yes, okay. Well, we do have that MOU with Ministry of Infrastructure. As soon as a repair is undertaken, as you would have seen, WASCO would have to dig and try to reinstate. But the thing that the final surfacing of that road, we do not have the expertise. This is not our area of specialty. So that MOU allows the Ministry of Infrastructure to go in there to do that final reinstatement of those holes. Now the thing is, during the dry season, it can happen a lot faster. Because the area is dry, you can do your asphalting and all that. But during the rainy season, it takes a bit longer, because you cannot apply asphalt onto a wet substrate. It will not hold. So a lot of the times, the reason why it's not done on time is because you have environmental conditions, and probably the ministry is not able to execute it at that time. But we try our best to at least bring it up to road surface and have it compacted. But again, we have those extremely heavy pieces of equipment traversing those roads. So whatever piece of reinstatement that we do, it does not last until the ministry comes to do the real proper work.
Yeah. Yes. That's understandable. And I hope now people have a better understanding of how this works. One of the key things that we have been pushing, especially of late, is the fact that we are all consumers of water, the entire population. And a lot of people depend wholly and solely on the supply from WASCO. We keep pushing and preaching rainwater harvesting, storage, and what have you. And people will argue that, yes, we can store, but what are we storing? Yes. And then we go back again and explain to them, the reason for the low supply and what have you. But it's always good to remind people of why it is that we have to play our own part in ensuring sustainability.
I think what people need to understand is that the region and the world at large is under a climate crisis.
Yes.
I mean, we speak of climate change, but I really believe now it has become a crisis. And I think we need to understand that when we say to you, you need to do rainwater harvesting, we say to you, you must conserve. So there are a lot of little things that people can do to conserve. For example, you could have your faucets as low flow faucets. You could reuse your water. Reuse of water is very important. You know, you could collect your gray water and you could use it to water your plants. Even when we preach a lot of the times about washing of your vehicles, you use a bucket rather than just leave the hose running. You know, we ensure that we as WASCO, as our WASCO family, we preach that to our employees, and we've been trying to get that message out there. I think that message is very, very important because, you see, everybody would love the pipe-on water flowing through their taps. It's a challenge, St. Lucia. It's a challenge. We would love it too because we would be having more sales. So, you know, sometimes when you hear people talk, and we wonder, like, don't they realize that if we had the water to sell, we would be more than happy to do so, but we don't always have it available. So there are things that we expect the public at large to do. And in recent times, we have gone to the Ministry of Education. Yes. And under this new initiative, we're going to try to sell that message out to the students, because who's better to come home and preach it than the young ones in our society, you know? Yes. So we need people to understand that water conservation is going to be key, and it's just the way of the world. So it's the same way the world moved towards, you know, everybody now has a cell phone, everything is on social media. Very same thing, the changes. We have to make those changes.
Yes, yes, and the best way is to reach the next generation, you know, the next generation of WASCO team members as well.
That's right, because that's who's going to be there.
Yes, yes, indeed. Yeah. So we're going to wrap up our program today. So just some final words from both of you to, again, solicit people's patience as we do what we're mandated to do. So give us your final thoughts.
I just like to inform the public that climate change and climate variability, these are real. And these are things that we, St. Lucians, have no control over. So when things are plentiful, we'll be better able to supply water. Thankfully for this year, we are able, from since January to February, we've been getting more than normal levels of rainfall, and we have been taking advantage of that. And from predictions, it's going to be better this year in terms of rainfall than last year, so we'll be better supply the public. But notwithstanding, we still have to have that conservation mentality that, listen, not because it's available that we should waste it, you know. Because what is wasted prevents somebody else from getting it. That's true. You know, you must always think like this, you know. I know folks prefer to have their supplies via the means so they don't have to use a pump or something, because that's electricity, that's an extra expense in that household. But try to conserve as much. Because if we all conserve, then there will be more available, so there will be less restrictions in supply.
Yes, yes. Yeah. And any final words from you?
Yeah, well, from me, I want to tell St. Lucia that I think that we want to start a partnership with them. We want them to truly trust us, because it's the only way for us to be able to supply, and it's the only way for us to have, you know, an amicable solution to all of the problems. We want them to know that we feel their pain, we empathize with them, we know what it is like to be without water. Like Mr. Anthony said, conservation is going to be the key. There are going to be many, many more times, people, when we have to shut down. There will be planned maintenance, and there will also be emergency maintenance. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Team WASCO. We hope this has put things into perspective for you. Thanks again for joining us on this edition of Issues and Answers. My name is Dana Stevens. Have a good day.